welcome Santosh Yadav for this podcast. He's not just a GD in AngularJS, but he's more of an programmer himself. Trust me, there is no way that you're going to just be pondering upon one framework, and you're not just going to be the person who knows that framework itself, because nobody wants you to know the entire framework. But the way you program, the way you analyze the problem statement and get yourself that knowledge of like, hey, this is not what I should be solving, I should be doing something else. That's where an absolute essence of being a programmer comes up. And here I am with Santosh Yadav sir, telling you guys what should be the absolute programming hustle that you need to do, and no big nonsense of saying that I know only this framework. And I'm honored to have him on my podcast, because not just great people come up in a podcast, or else it's not like the only people who knows this framework. There are hundreds of experts in this same framework, but it doesn't take a better programmer to just analyze one framework and do it. So this is going to be a guidance to all of you to just leave that funda of being good in one framework or one programming language and develop yourself as a programmer. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this podcast. It's an honor for me to do a podcast with you.
Thanks for the invite, Vishwas. Glad to be here.
Yes, on a scale of 1 to 10, like I just want to just go a little philosophical here. Like, what's the scale at which impact of programming has done to the world? Like, I know that any person from a commerce want to do programming today, but there are people who have preached to the world that you don't need to do programming. But I just want to ask you, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the impact of programming in the today's world?
I mean, a lot, right? I mean, I don't think so. Between 1 to 10, it's a big number, I think, because let's see. I mean, if you see few years ago, right? I mean, when tech was not easily accessible and all those things, many industries where they were like just doing manual stuff, and now the tech has actually replaced a lot of manual stuff. That I'm sure. I mean, when we talk about replacing people, I'm not just talking about replacing people, but the errors, right? I mean, if you go to the financial domains, the numbers are really important, and as a human, you can make a mistake, and if you just make a mistake in financial domain, it is going to cost you a lot much. And uh, nowadays, actually, the errors has actually gone down just because of everything is automated, and people have actually started implementing the business logic, right? I mean, people who understand the business logic well, they are one who is going to actually rule everywhere. So it doesn't matter from which business you are coming from. Anyone can code if they know how to actually convert their business logic into an application. They can just anyone can learn coding. I mean, you just mentioned people from my uh, commerce domain actually interested in doing coding. I mean, of course, why they shouldn't be? I mean, they are the one who are going to be CAs or something else, right? Who are company secretaries, everything which requires to work on your financial domain or financial things for a company. If they know their business well, they know how to do all those stuff. I mean, of course, they can help the industry to grow, right? I mean, they can just bring that knowledge which they have and convert into an application. So doesn't matter from where you are coming from. I think tech is for everyone.
No, but like I always wanted to ask this question to all the full stack developers or as the JS developers. Like, what's the combination in your life? Is it just programming and programming, or else what is it all about? Is it a mix of like language plus the vision of programming, or is it just frameworks and frameworks? What is that?
It doesn't.
What does
It
your
doesn't matter.
typical day looks like when you are solving your problem statement? That's my question.
Okay, so if you ask about me, so just not coding, right? I mean, most of the time when you are working on a large enterprise application, you have to think about how it is going to scale, how it is going to perform better. So all those things, which of course you have to keep in mind. So for it is possible that for let's say for a few days you are not writing code, you are just thinking about how you can actually make this application better, or how you can scale this application, or how you can actually make it easy to actually add features for next 10 developers, right? I mean, thinking about the developers experience as well. So everything it involves. My day-to-day job is actually the same. So my if you have to actually see my day-to-day work, I mean, most of the days I don't write code. I just think about, okay, how I can actually probably make this application easy to free factor or easy to actually add a lot of features or just help the developers understand some concepts. So of course, it's coding is not the only thing. Of course, I love to code, but you have to do that task as well, right?
Yeah, because most of the time we forget the fact that we are a human being and it's a machine that we are coding on. It's like we literally feel that we are coding something on a human being. And we take it into much more complexity and we fiddle around with which programming language, which framework, and all these kind of things. Like, I just want to ask you, like, what's the most beautiful concept of programming language that you have come across? Because not all people can get to know, like, this is what I wanted to do. And this didn't work out. So I'm just going to go with my own gut feeling or something like that. There are days in which even I know you're a .NET developer where probably there are some frameworks which are not available. Sometimes you need to create some because not the community support, but some problem statements require something more.
Mm.
So what's the most beautiful concept that you have come across with the programming language? Because you are a JS, JDE, and I think you should be knowing more of an angular aspects where things are working out. So I just wanted to ask you this question.
I mean, a lot of stuff, right? So when I started working as a .NET developer long back, so one good thing about any programming language, right? So most of the concepts are same. So if you think that okay, you if you migrate to another language, you have to learn a lot of things. I would say no. You can actually relearn a lot of things. That's possible. But if you see, the concepts are pretty similar. For example, when I started doing TypeScript, right? So as I was moving from .NET to TypeScript, and I was already aware of the type safeties and all those concepts. So it was an easy migration, right? And if I go to any language, right? So most of the language has this type safety concept. Java has one. Uh, Python doesn't has one. So, but most of the languages, right? So everyone knows what type safety means. So all those concepts I could easily actually apply when I moved on to uh, TypeScript. Similarly, I learned few things from Node.js, right? So uh, as a .NET developer, I struggled a lot to understand one concept called middlewares. Then I started learning Node.js, and I actually uh, because a lot of times it happens, right? You use some concept, but actually you're not aware what it means because you're just too involved into your day to day job. You don't think about okay, let's Google or something, right? So you just think okay, this is something it works, right? I mean, most of the developers like it works, don't touch it. So that's the thing. So when I moved into Node.js, I started reading about middleware because that's a very important concept to understand in Node.js whenever you are working with servers. And then I realized, okay, this is what middleware means. I mean, I was used to actually use this in .NET, and then I never figured it out what it means. So I think if you understand most concepts, I think you can go ahead and learn any language easily. It won't be a struggle or something.
But I want to ask this question for all the newbies who are getting inside programming because they fiddle around with because I did that. I had this problem statement like which language should I learn? Then after a while I realized that man, is it going to matter as long as the concepts are as you told the concepts are still the same. The data types here will still be the data types there. Probably there is an improvement in one language to the other because there are some complex data sets, there are no complex data sets and things like that. But it comes as a part and parcel of the scientific computing aspect. Like as a newbie, like as a new age programmer, because we don't know anything and we just come to the engineering and we decide to learn JavaScript and we feel
Mhm.
it complex and we just move ahead with other language. So I just wanted to ask, like, which is the best programming language to pick up when we are learning new as a new programmer?
I think I mean it depends. I mean, to be frank, the first language I found very easy was Java. I mean, a lot of developers may actually think, okay, this is very complex, but actually, the first language which were actually taught in our college days was C, and I really hated C. I mean, I remember I was actually of thought that okay, programming is something not for me because of course it depends who uh, I mean how you're learning it, right? I mean, our professor was not that great. He just wanted to uh, finish his syllabus and that's it. He never focused on anything else. So I started really hating it. Then we learned C++, and I was like, okay, I actually failed in C++ in my college days. It was practical and I couldn't do anything because same. I mean, the professor was not interested in teaching us. And in our days, actually, in 2004 or 5, actually, even computers were not available, right? I mean, I didn't had my own laptop till 2015. So it was really difficult to learn because I can go home and I know nothing because I don't have access to computers. And in even in during our what during our lectures, I mean, they're not teaching much of programming. They're just giving us code and then just they are asking us to type. So that was not really actually they were not interested at all. And then we don't have any other things to actually refer to. Only thing was available was book, and books were really costly in those days. I mean, I even couldn't afford a book. So when I learned Java, the professor was really nice. So he focused more on concept, as I mentioned, right? Concepts are really important. So from C++ to Java, and then I really started understanding those OOPS concepts, which we generally talk about, object-oriented programming. And he really actually taught us really well. And then for a few years, I was really interested in Java. But by the like 2008, when I completed my bachelor's, I realized, okay, .NET is really something which I love. So I moved into C Sharp, and then I joined my first organization where I did nothing. But yeah, I was really interested into .NET by that time because I really loved the language. And then that's how it continued, right? But for a lot of developers today, I mean, it depends. So a lot of developers I have seen, they really like Python. Uh, Most of the developers are today coding into JavaScript or TypeScript. So it depends. I mean, give it some time. I mean, it's not like, for example, I said, right? I mean, I learned C in 2004 and started hating programming till the time I learned Java. So give some time. Most of the developers actually give up very early. They will like they will try it for a month and then they'll say, okay, this is not something for me. But that's not like it, right? I mean, in 1 month you cannot learn anything. 1 month probably you will be just figuring out the language. That's it. So give some time. I mean, whatever language you choose, just give it some time. Probably it can be C and it can be C++ as well, but give it some time. Try to understand. I mean, today you have a lot of contents available for free, lot of experts who are actually sharing the knowledge, which is really nice, right? I mean, you have everything for free, not like 2004 when there was nothing available for free. I mean, even the best resource available was book, which was also like very costly. And by the time you buy a book, that's something which is really outdated, or you are just referring to the old version. I mean, I was not even aware that C has so many versions in 2004. So that I think era has uh, like taken technology far or made it far better. So whatever language you try, just give it some time. And if you think this is something not for me, still you will learn something. I mean, that is something the learning you will take from that language probably you can apply in whatever you choose next.
Yeah, but like your day doesn't start with analyzing what big O notation is. Like you actually don't even think of like what will happen until you touch the backend part of the code. So I just wanted to ask you like what's the main difference between the approaches that is going on today? Because not all people understand the way in which the front end also has to work. They are like
Mhm.
I just get the code somewhere, I just put it, or else is it like something like we need to know the complexities behind the system because we are dealing with a scalable system? What's your approach when you are dealing with such kind of problem statements?
Look, I mean, every front end framework which you choose, or any backend framework which you choose, so they have some standard practices, right? So they have something known as best practices. So try to concentrate on them. Try to search, read about them, and see what is the best approach which should be taken. I mean, of course, all the frameworks, all the languages, they have I think you don't have to worry about data structure nowadays because every programming languages has their own what wrappers around your data structure. So you don't have to really go ahead and implement. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I have to actually go ahead and search. So let's see which search algorithm to apply. It's not like that. I mean, all the best methods are already available in your language. So most of the time you don't have to think about it. But let's see which method is preferred, right? For example, if I have to filter something in JavaScript, I can do it via for loop, right? Or for each loop. Or I can I can just use the new methods which are available. I can just use filter method, which will be, of course, depends. It can be faster, it cannot be faster, right? I mean, if you just dump a lot of data, uh, it is going to give you performance issues because you're running it in front end. But similarly, you can do it something on back end, right? And on your back end, you can just write some optimized code which gives you result faster. You can optimize your queries, I mean, which is going to return you the data. So you have, of course, as a full stack developer, you have to focus on each and every part of the system, which thing can be optimized, and follow the best patterns. I mean, now all the languages, as I said, all the languages, all the frameworks, they already have some best practices. They already have wrappers around your data structure, so you don't have to worry about them. But think about where your improvement can come from. I mean, is it like front end, your back end, or is it like say, really a database thing where you can actually improve? So yeah, that's what you should be concentrating on.
Yeah, but like I just want to ask you this question because I have seen a lot of Angular JS developers who say every day is complex, but I don't feel like it can get complex until and unless you know the concepts behind what you are doing. So I just wanted to ask you, like, are some days harder than the rest, or what is the hardest day of your life looks like?
I mean, it depends, right? I mean, I was saying, I mean, Angular JS is something which we don't use anymore. So Angular JS was the older version of the framework, and now we have something known as Angular. So it depends, right? I mean, what is the problem you are trying to solve? It happens, right? So for example, if I'm trying to add a new tool, so just let's talk about this week, right? I mean, I'm trying to migrate our linter from TS-lint to ES-lint, and it's been 2 days. Finally, I got something working. I mean, in a single app. So it's like I have hundreds of libraries to take care of. So it sometimes, of course, it takes a lot of time to figure out, okay, how this tool works, how to migrate it, because I have been already using some previous tool which is now outdated, so I cannot use it anymore. So I have to migrate, and then I have to plan which app to migrate, and then start migration, and then you will get a lot of errors, right? Then you have to of course, go ahead and search for those errors. So most of the time, the days are going to be like that in case you are keeping your framework or keeping your application up to date. Otherwise, most of the time, if you see, a lot of companies don't invest that much into migration. I mean, they think, okay, what was made like 2 years ago is, if it is working, it is fine, which shouldn't be the case. I mean, of course, you should keep your applications up to date. But most of the time, if I have to talk about uh, my days where I struggled a lot, probably it has something to do with the developer experience, where I have to integrate a new tool, or I have to uh, resolve some problem which is actually causing a lot of issues to the developers who are adding the new code base, right? So make their life easier, probably write some guide for them. So those are the things I think, yeah.
You brought up a very nice point because, like, sometimes it gets complex also, but like making the design decision for any application to get in, like, it can be like whether to choose the right framework. What if this framework gets old? What if we want to just migrate the code through one app, like code through one app to another app, like how to use the reusability feature of any programming language and the things like that. So I just wanted to ask you, like, how is the design decisions made in the front end and the back end part of the application, according to you? Like some best and the worst practices that are happening today, and some best practices according to you.
I mean, of course, let's say most of the organization have architects, right? So the best thing would be, of course, whatever is being developed, go through the architects, give, I mean, give the decision, keep, I mean, talk to them what they suggest. If it is coming from architect, of course, they have a lot of years of experience, and they can suggest you the better ways, right? That's the best thing to do. Or if someone is, let's say, you don't have really an architect in your team, so someone who is senior, who has uh, done a lot of programming, probably you can just talk to them. Or the best approach which I like is discuss within the team. So because actually the great ideas can come from anywhere. It doesn't matter that if you're an architect, or if you are just someone who is just starting into tech, ideas can come from anywhere. So that's what I believe in always. In case something is, if you think it is complex, right? Because most of these problems, probably it is already solved, right? and you may get some best solution somewhere. But in case you're really struggling with something which is like unique to your organization or unique to your project, probably discuss it within team. Don't take a call like as an individual, right? So because of course that can be the best you can come with, but probably someone else has better idea. So that's what I believe in. And the best decision you can take is probably planning to do something, everything alone, right? And probably as a, let's say if you're a tech leader working somewhere and you are taking all the decision, probably you're not doing your job best. That's something which shouldn't be doing. And for organization point of view, I think most of the organizations should actually invest in migrating their application, right? Because if you see the front end frameworks, they have been improving. They have been actually releasing new versions. Depends upon the framework, but they have been improved, releasing new versions 6 months, a year. So don't think that the application which you built like 1 year ago is like still performant. Cannot expect that, right? When try to keep them updated with the current features or current deprecations, whatever the framework is giving you. So utilize them. Probably it can remove a lot of code base which you might have written in past and make your application work a lot faster.
Yeah, that's true. That's true because we forget the fact that it's being coded by somebody else. Like, what if this goes dead tomorrow? Like, I did an interview with Jason Myers, and he told that he was in one platform where he had 500,000 people, and as soon as the Google shuts it down, he lost all the 500,000 people because that's how you should never put all your eggs in a basket. You should
Mhm.
always make sure that you have a backup plan B, which is actually going to say your survival strategy. So speaking of that, I just wanted to ask you this one question really as a developer. What should
Mhm.
be the absolute perspective of a developer today in order to achieve any task? Because I'm
Mhm.
asking you in terms of the interviews perspective, because not all interviews will be more efficient in asking you to write a program on a website using an Angular. They
Yeah.
really go behind the vanilla aspects of it, like vanilla Python, vanilla JavaScript. So in this society, which is almost more into that way of testing anybody, like I just want to you to give some tips and tricks to all those programmers to change their perspectives, and what should be the right perspective of a programmer when in the development, like in a team of people, what should be that absolute right swarm perspective? No
I mean,
clashes.
okay. So, so I don't understand the industry still. Why they actually ask the something in interviews which they are never going to use. So I just really hate it. I'll not lie. I've given a lot of interviews, and whenever I get those types of questions where I have to actually write some data structure or implement some or solve some problems like related to algorithms, I'm sure I'm not going to actually write those code at work. I'm probably going to actually, as you say, center a div, right? So I think this is time actually industry. This organization should understand that okay, if we are not going to actually ask or make them write this question, this thing. Why should we are asking them at first place? Probably you someone can be like, let's say you are a really good developer who is using some Go framework, right? And they are using that Go framework. Probably that the question is should be related to the Go framework which they are using, rather than actually going into okay, just implement the this bubble sort using Go, right? Of course, you are not going to do that because you are already using a framework and and you understand that framework really well, and they want to actually hire you for that framework. So I don't really like that, but as everyone knows, the most of the big organization they actually ask data structure and algorithm. So in that terms, I will say if you just want to actually clear those interviews, probably concentrate more on data structure algorithm. There are a lot of platforms which you can use, and uh, I will not say that's useless because because probably you are actually writing some algorithms in your code base. On your daily day-to-day work, right? You're actually resolving some problems. How you're doing it is actually you're using some data structures and algorithms in your from your framework itself. So I think if you know the logic and how to do it, I don't think so. Data structure algorithm is going to be something which is really difficult to actually break off. I mean, you can easily, if you really have that strong mind, I mean, resolving the problems. Let's say some finding some objects or some data in an array, right? You already have been doing that in your day-to-day work. You do it probably daily. How to find this record? You just have to actually go ahead and apply that logic, and you have to solve that problem, because most of the data structure algorithm problem which you will see are around the same. So you will be probably writing some for loop, if loop. That's something which you will be doing. So from these breaking, just getting into some top or fang companies, as we say, you can concentrate. So give some time. Probably if you are, let's say, doing some framework stuff on your day-to-day basis, probably on weekends, right? Invest some time in case really you really want to get into those companies where the DSAs are really important. So probably give some hours on weekend and try to go through the problem statements, try to solve them. Uh, to be frank, I mean, I've been how many? 13 years. I mean, I've been coding from 13 years, but I never gave the priority to data structure algorithm, because I know, I mean, my skill sets are different, and probably I'm going to interview. I'll prefer interviewing for someone who actually doesn't ask DSA. It's not like I'm scared. I mean, I know I won't be able to actually solve them in 45 minutes, right? I mean, I might take more than 45 minutes, and that's how most of the this interviews are. They give you 45 minutes, solve this problem, and then it should work without IDEs and a lot of things, right? So I think if even if you are into a specific framework, see what are the best practices, as I already said, and how they work. If you know them well, I mean, you will be able to actually resolve this data structure algorithms problems as well. That wouldn't be any difficult thing to do. But as I said again, I mean, I think organizations should understand that as well. That okay, this is not this guy is going to do. He's not going to actually re-implement the wheel or reinvent the wheel, as we said. He's going to actually work on this framework, and let's ask the relevant questions rather than actually going into something which is never going to be used. And
Yeah,
those can be actually questions, right? I mean, let's say, okay, how you will do that? I mean, most of scenario based question, but writing code, solving, I don't understand that. Why?
yeah, that's true because I have given I think 17, 18 interviews,
Um,
six down, but 12 has been very successful. But like now I'm more into my master, so I'm like I am not ready to involve for 3 years. Sorry for it, because every company asks for 3 years, and I'm like I just want an internship. So now I'm like
right.
no money involved, nothing. Just give me some problem statement
Mhm,
because I want to learn. Yeah, that's true. But like, Angular has less of communities, I think so, because JavaScript is there's not a community which is like too big as we see in the Python base. Like there are
mhm,
communities which are more focused on the deep learning, AI, and all these aspects. So I just wanted to ask you because more of your GD is kind of an Angular one, and nobody wants to actually pioneer the ways to become the only guy who knows this
mhm.
framework, who knows this skill itself. So everybody wants to be that same old full stack developer. Just
Correct.
wanted to ask you
Understood.
this question, like how did you pioneer your way of learning programming? Because that's what I wanted to ask. I know you fell in love with the Java, and then you were absolutely a programmer who fell in love with the programming language from then on. So I want to ask you, like, how was your community hustle when it comes to Angular JS? Like, how was it happening? Because not all communities give a reach for what it is today. Like, we have a lot of communities today, but I don't think so. There were too many of the communities like 3 years or 4 years before. So I want to ask you, what was your programming hustle in the community?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I didn't use AngularJS for a long time, but I started with Angular. I remember in 2017. So I started teaching Angular basically. So it was not at all. I mean, I was not aware of even the communities. So 2017, actually, they launched Angular 4, which was the staple version, and that's where I picked up Angular and I started teaching it because, of course, as you said, I mean, few years ago there was nothing, no communities in India, and of course, I was not aware of it and aware of any. So I started teaching Angular in one of the institute in Pune because I wanted to do that. I mean, when I moved to Pune actually in 2016, I came up with some vision, right? I mean, that's one of the thing was actually to do something, teach the programming languages, and I started liking Angular. So I thought of like, let's start teaching it. I think when you teach, I mean, you also learn, right? I mean, because you want to make sure that you give your best. So I started teaching Angular in 2017, and then of course I made good money. I started working with Edureka as well. I mean, in case you're aware, Edureka is one of the edtech platform. So I did uh, work with them for quite few months, and then I thought of, okay, I'm earning money via Angular. I'm not paying anything to actually learn Angular because everything is free and open source, and even I'm not paying to use Angular. So everything is for free. I'm making money, but I mean, I'm not giving back to the community. I mean, I'm not sure where the community is. So that's where I started 2018 with an vision. So I said, now I'll try to do one thing. I'll start getting involved more with the community. So I was aware of meetups. I started looking for a meetup in Pune, and I was unsuccessful because there was no meetup related to Angular. There was one which closed like around 2016, and then again I was lost. 2018, ended up looking for the way to actually like contribute to the community. And then 2019, end of actually 2018, I realized there is a conference which is happening in New Delhi, which was Angular conference. So I thought of like, let's book the ticket. And I went to that conference in 2019. It was like Feb of 2019. And then once I went there, I actually saw many talks. I mean, the people sharing their knowledge. That was my first conference ever in like after 11 years being in tech and first conference. So I went there. I mean, I was really inspired by all the speakers, the kind of knowledge they were sharing. So I even spoke to someone from Angular team, and then I took some advice how I can actually start doing open source contribution, because that's what I wanted to do. Uh, the reason being the same. I mean, when I actually started teaching Angular, I was aware of the GitHub repository, right? So I went to the GitHub repository and couldn't see anyone from India in top 100 contributors from India. I was like really disappointed because India is really huge. I mean, we have millions of developers and no one is doing that. So I really wanted to do that, and that was my focus. And then I went to speak to him, and he guided me. Okay, this is how you can start. You can write blog posts, you can create contents. I said no. How to contribute on GitHub? So he said, okay, these are the things which we require in help in. So he said, okay, we have documentation which can be improved. We have our CLIs which can be improved, because of course from day one you cannot actually go to GitHub or any frameworks, right, and start contributing, because of course the code is really huge and it thousands of lines of code and you don't understand anything, because it contains a lot of things, right? It has your compiler, it has your features. So where to start. So he guided me, okay, start with documentation. This is where we need a lot of help. And that's what I did. So I started contributing to Angular documentation. I started improving documentation. By the time I also started contributing to one of the libraries, which is NGRX. So I was doing both, and then I started writing blog posts. And by 20, sorry, November, in September, I think, yeah, in September, I went to my first conference, which was in Sri Lanka. So NG Sri Lanka was happening for the first time. I actually reached out to the person who is the organizer of NG Sri Lanka. So he was on Twitter and he just posted that if anyone is interested in giving a talk, just let us know. That conference was free for everyone. It was actually in a college in Sri Lanka. So I mean, you have to actually pay for your own tickets. I said, okay, that's absolutely fine. I'll do that. And within 1 week, actually, it was announced that I was one of the speakers. So I went to Sri Lanka in September 2019. And by that time, actually, someone from Google actually reached out to me and he nominated me for GD for Angular. So it's a nomination-based process, basically. So GD is not a certification as a lot of people think. So it's not a certification at all. So this is something which is driven based on, or you can get it based on your community contributions. Google has GD program for all the technologies they have. For example, if you are good in Go, machine learning, AI, they also have categories, GD categories for those. If you are good in GCP, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, they also have categories open for them. So so that's how actually it happened in November. Actually, in November 2019, I became a GD, and I continued doing the same, right? So once you become GD, what you have to do is what you are already doing. I mean, you just have to continue with your contributions and everything. That's it.
That's true. That's true
And
because
I think I never.
more or less there were less of communities and more of open source happening from the other places. Like there are pioneers of the open source itself. There are people who are earning a lot of money from the open source contribution also. Like GitHub has the sponsorship projects and everything coming up. So I thought of like, why shouldn't I interview somebody who is more of an open source guy? Then I have seen a lot of your frameworks. It's amazing also. So how did this, like, last question, how did this writing frameworks became your everyday hustle of madness? Like the programming madness just went on through writing your own frameworks right now. So how did it start? Like you are also very new to that framework, but like how did that
I mean,
working process start?
so I'm not actually writing any frameworks as of now. So to be frank, I mean, the most of the projects which I have is tool or UI framework, which is there. So actually, it all started way back in 2019 when I was doing a lot of open source. So I thought of actually taking some idea from Angular framework. They had released some API which you can use to actually deploy your application from command line, and you can integrate it with any vendor. I mean, so there was an integration with, I think I remember that time there was an integration with Vercel, there was an integration with GitHub, and I think one more. Yeah, I think there was one more. Yeah, Firebase. So these three integrations were already available. So I thought of actually doing it for Netlify. So I created that tool where you can actually just from command line, you can just do ng deploy, and your Angular application is actually deployed on Netlify on their server. You just have to actually take the key. And that's how it started. So everyone loved that project and still getting used. I around get 300 to 400 downloads per week. So I thought of, okay, actually, I did it for myself because I just wanted to learn it. But it became pretty successful, and then people started using it. So now I have to actually go ahead and manage it, right? I mean, okay, I cannot actually discard that project because already people are using it. And then I just did few more open source projects, and then I stopped because being a full-time developer, that's not possible. I mean, I have my full-time job and then I have my own family. So you cannot actually keep continue creating new frameworks and expect people to actually go ahead and raise the PR, because that's where people, a lot of projects struggle, right? I mean, you have, of course, you have thousands of users, but if no one is actually contributing back to the project, even in case they are getting some issues, they are just raising an issue and asking you to fix it for them. Those are the things which I didn't like. So I stopped actually getting involved in most of the projects. I I look for projects. I contribute to some projects which are already being maintained and well maintained, and have a backing of community. So I like prefer contributing to those projects because I know, okay, if I have some issues, probably there is a large community. Probably if I'm not able to fix it, someone will fix it. But yeah, so that's how it started. I mean, I started as a hobby. Now I don't get involved with so many open source projects because I already have a lot of things to do. I mean, I'm running my channel, then I'm creating contents, and I don't get that much time. But yes, of course, in my day-to-day work, if I get some issues, and if there is it is actually the issues in framework, I prefer actually going ahead and contributing to that framework. Of course, in my free time again, because of course my company, or my client will not pay me to actually fix an issue in one of the framework, right? But yeah, some if I get it, I mean, I prefer fixing it my own rather than actually being a guy who will just raise an issue and then ask framework to do it rather than that's something which I do. I actually maintain that much uh, that much the what do you say, uh, I'm not able to get the word. Okay, but yeah, I mean, I just at least try to do that much for the community. If I'm getting in my projects, probably it will help
Contribution.
other developers right out on them. Yeah.
Contributing helps you to learn a lot. I think you have learned the best way, sir. Like because we forget the fact that there's a problem statement, we need a solution for it. Instead of raising an issue, it would be great if you can actually get it done, because not just you, there are hundreds of developers who might even face that. So I think probably the best way to learn is go to the GitHub, just fiddle around with the code, and if you don't work it, don't worry, PR will not be requested. The other thing is PR will get requested. Simple as that. Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this amazing podcast. I think this was more of an introduction to how to start your programming hustle itself. Like, forget about like how to do the open source contribution, how to be a GD. It's a part and parcel of your hard work. Like, to absolute beginning of an hard work, I think probably this is going to be an introduction to what is programming to every person. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your podcast. It was great talking to you
Yeah,
today.
no problem. I mean, thank you. Thanks a lot for inviting.